Welcome to Surgeon Syndicate. If you're paying attention, you know that you only make money when you work. It might be great money, but it's dependent on you. The information on this podcast will help you solve that. We interview experts and provide analysis into financial freedom through commercial real estate. Why? To help physicians like you thrive. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to Surgeon Syndicate. This is your host, Dr. Michael McManus, and we are here for the second half of our conversation with Trevor McGregor. Trevor, welcome back to the show.
Oh, great to be here, Mike. And what a great conversation so far.
Yes. So we were just talking about the change and the fear of change and really what it takes to leave the comfortable and environment you've been in where things are predictable and go into the unpredictable or less predictable world, or just something you don't have experience in. And most of our conversation was about changing jobs, whether we're going to quit medicine, whether we're going to go part-time or work in a different environment. But I think since this is a real estate show, but this is a big part of investing in something different. So I've talked to docs about real estate and they're like, yeah, I love that idea. I love the idea of having passive income that I don't pay taxes on because it's wiped out by the depreciation within the investment. But they won't ever do it. And they just kind of stick with, I've got my financial advisor, my comfortable thing. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think there's a lot of opportunity missed. So when you get into just from an investing standpoint and the doctor mindset, what have you experienced there with helping people move on to doing something a little bit more than what they've been doing?
Well, it's such a great question. And I think, we're living in a different day today than maybe we did 10, 15, 20 years ago, where if you really think about it, it boils down to their identity. And this might sound a little far-fetched, but it's really true. And as a high-performance coach that coaches doctors all over this beautiful blue planet, we really ask, what is your ideal identity? And as we start to unpack what that looks like, where you live, how much you make, how much time you're spending with your spouse, your kids, you're traveling, you're tithing, it is evident that high performers have multiple streams of income. So if your identity is such that you have one stream of income, that's not consistent with where most high performers want to go. And so when we talk about what is that opportunity to make passive income, real estate, in my belief system, as you know, Mike, because I'm a real estate investor, is the greatest wealth vehicle on the planet. So if we can get you to shift into that identity of being a high-performing doctor, and that high-performing doctors also make active income and passive income, it starts to open up their eyes that real estate is one of the greatest ways that they can go out there and live that identity. But the challenge with that is oftentimes they'll be called out for it. It could be their spouse. It could be somebody at the golf course that had a bad experience investing in real estate, or they tell you how their Uncle Bob lost his shirt in real estate. But most times it's their financial planner. Now, why is people's financial planner not saying, yeah, real estate's amazing, go invest in it. I invest in it. All my clients invest in it, because they are all living in the law of familiarity, which is predominantly the stock market, right? And a financial planner does not want to see you take a portion of your stocks or any capital that you've got and put it into something, A, that they're not familiar with, B, they're not going to earn any, income off of, and C, you've been with them for 10, 15 years and you don't want to upset the apple cart or disappoint them or make them feel bad or tell them they're wrong. No, not that, Trevor. Yeah, that's where we have to go if you're going to be a high performer that really wants to create that second stream of income, even a third stream. Right? It's got to be consistent with your identity. And then you've got to be able to really speak your truth to your spouse, to you, the guys at the golf course, to your financial planner on why this is a must for you and not a should for you. What do you think of that?
Man, that's so when you're talking about how if you're going to be a high performer, you have to be willing. It's not just building those multiple streams, but you have to face some relationships that might be hard and changes in those that say, hey, this used to work, but I'm going to do it a little different. And we can continue on this road together, or maybe we need to part ways.
Correct.
And I was just watching the series is it on Apple or on Prime or something about the New England Patriots dynasty. and the
Yes.
relationship between Tom Brady and Belichick and Robert Kraft, all very high performers, all very different people. And what I brought out of that whole series is the greatest thing they accomplished was the three of them managed to stay together for 20 years.
Yes.
And that's probably the hardest thing with a lot of high performers is you butt heads and things blow up. And maybe that's what happens to bands. They're brilliant creatives, but they maybe aren't the greatest at relationships. And so they flame hot and they burn out and go away. And probably a lot of sports teams, business is the same thing, but they did a great job of having those conversations. And in the end, they reached a point where they were, it was all done and the 20 years were over. And maybe that for docs, not only were they able to have those tough conversations to move to a higher level, they challenged each other to all come to a higher level as they had those tough conversations. And there was a point where they all had to make the decision. This has been a great run, but it's time for us to move on to something different. And maybe that's part of the doctor mindset that, and it's been a great run. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that it was bad now. It was a great run, but now it's time
That's
for something
it.
different.
Well, Michael, I love that you're bringing this up because what I support doctors with there is really this quote. And it's a delicious quote. If you want to write it down, people, I highly recommend it because we say that all relationships are either for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I just love that. I'll say it again. All relationships are either for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And so maybe you've had your reason with your financial planner. Maybe you've had your season with your financial planner. But what if it's not meant to be a lifetime, right? You talk about sports teams like, the New England Patriots, or we can look at NBA teams or, NFL teams. We can look at a ton of different sports or bands or anything. And again, it's the same thing. Whether you like it or not, some of them have come together for a reason and a season, like the Beatles, where maybe they weren't meant to be together for a lifetime, right? Or other players get traded, or other players, retire, or other players, move on. So at the end of the day, what if that conversation that you're not willing to have is exactly what's coming up for you because you're getting this little lump in your throat going, yeah, maybe it's time I had a conversation with my financial planner. Or maybe I had a conversation with my bank manager, or maybe I have a conversation with, somebody that's maybe a little bit further ahead as a high performer that has multiple streams of income. And again, I go back to real estate being without question in my mind, looking at all the different money-making opportunities that are out there, whether it's the stock market, cryptocurrency, e-commerce. I mean, I've looked and done all of these, Michael. I keep coming back to real estate is the easiest and the fastest way for somebody to, dip their toe in the water and then eventually their leg and then their whole body, if they like it, for them to become what we call financially free for the rest of their life. And not only financially free, but create that time freedom, that location freedom, that impact freedom, and that ability to hang around with like-minded people. I truly believe there's nothing better on the planet.
And that's great. And it doesn't mean you have to be all in real estate. And I think there's the difference when you develop those multiple streams of income, you no longer have this fear. I know there were some docs, and especially during COVID, if there were challenges and things they disagreed with, but they were afraid of losing their job. And
Sure.
they bowed to the hospital because they were afraid of losing their job. But if you're in a situation where you can always go be a doctor somewhere else. You have income that if you lost your job today, you still have income, and your investments are real estate can take a huge hit, but you still have some stuff in the stock market. You still
Yep.
have some crypto, and they all kind of do this, back and forth. And even within real estate, that, when multifamily took a hit, and or office took a hit. If you were 100% in office and that was all your real estate, man, you've come through a bad season. But at the same time that office was taking a hit, industrial was flying. And so
Yes.
by having these multiple diversified streams, to me, it takes away that stress of what if, or I can't. And as you see these things happen and that over time, and I guess that's been part of it over time, is you watch one take a hit, you're like, oh, I'm okay because of this. And the one that took a hit comes back. And it just takes away some of that financial insecurity of having all your eggs in one basket.
Well, absolutely. And again, don't forget the media. The media is poking and prodding you with all the reasons why you shouldn't be investing, right? There's interest rates, there's cap rates, there's a recession, there's a presidential election. We're not sure who's going to even take office. And so what happens is we start to do what's called the negative stack. All the reasons why maybe now's not the best time. Well, I'm telling you, there is no perfect time. But, if you go back to that old adage, the best time to plant a tree would have been 20 years ago. The next best time, if you want shade, would be today. You got to get started at some point. And you also have to remember that we're all living longer. I mean, I'm talking to a doctor and a whole bunch of doctors here that, if we can stay fit and healthy for another 5, 7, 8 years, I think with what's coming down the pipe in medicine is going to potentially have us living far beyond what we think we're going to live. And so going back to how are you going to finance that? You shouldn't get scared of it. You should think, how could I invest today to create a better tomorrow? And that's why investing in real estate, again, if you go back to, Maslow's hierarchy, we all need places to live and work. We're always going to need storage. We're always going to need strip malls. We're always going to need warehouses. And so knowing that that's ultimately what I could invest in, I mean, that's probably the best bet for me to place my money rather than a stock market that goes up and down, right? Or wild, wild west of crypto, which, don't even get me started on that. And not to knock it, but if you're looking for, probably the best and safest way to make sure that you've got that income coming in your golden years and beyond your golden years, when would now be a good time to invest in real estate?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny right now in some of the properties I've attempted to purchase in the last 6 months. Multiple ones have been from people who are in their 80s.
Yes.
And they're like, I'm just not like, they want to sell it. They want to kind of get away from managing it, but it's still providing them income. And a lot of it that, they don't have to do a whole lot. They've gotten good at, even the ones who are self-managing. There was one guy we tried to buy from, he owns 2 strip malls, and actually they were warehouses at some point in time, and they got remodeled into strip malls, and he's owned them for 30 years, and they
Wow.
still chug off a what now is an amazing income that 30 years ago was okay. And he's just like, yeah, I want to sell it, but he needed a price that was gonna, that then he could put in a 5% investment and have it churn off as much money. And we couldn't get to a price that worked for both of us. But he built this thing, and it's not a giant real estate empire. It's 2 buildings in a not so giant town in northern Michigan that are
Yep.
providing him a great retirement. And so
Yeah.
but at some point he had to step out there and decide to buy these things and run it.
That's
So,
it. And I think people oftentimes want the, grandiose facility, and they want it at center ice, and they want it to look like a certain way so they can tell their family and friends, well, where that's one thing that you might want, you really got to understand that it's oftentimes the B property or the B plus property or the A minus property or the C plus property that really is something that can rent all day long and cash flow like crazy.
yeah, those are that was a big thing for me to get past, is like why the ugly building is a better investment than the pretty building, and especially in an industrial flex space, that it could be in a building that's beat, but it's got great transportation access, and that it's something that your HVAC or plumber is going to want to rent all day long, and that
Yep.
it's not public facing, so they don't care that it's an ugly building. That's an awesome. Well, Trevor, so we're getting close to the end because I know you have other commitments today. So in our last couple minutes here, as we close this out, for any doctors who are out there and they're still trying to get over the hump of starting to invest in real estate or making some big change, what would be your words of wisdom for them here to kind of break through that barrier to their next level?
Well, just remember that, you know what, the path of least resistance is exactly that. It's the path of least resistance. And you've really got to do what we call getting comfortable being uncomfortable. I'll say it again. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable because this might be a new conversation. This might be a different time. Maybe your kids are, graduating college or graduating high school, and now you've got a little bit of more time on your hands. Whatever it is, I'm telling you that, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the next step. And the next step is really, information. That is listening to this podcast, listening to different episodes, listening to other doctors who have already done what it is that you might want to, follow in their footsteps and do. So number one is really get comfortable being uncomfortable, arm yourself with information, and then do not hesitate to pick up the phone and talk to somebody like Dr. McManus here, who's already done something that could turn what we call decades into days. I don't want you to take 10 years to figure this next move out. I want you to get inspired and then take what we call intelligent action. Whereas inspired means you don't have to do it, you get to do it. And intelligent and inspired action means you're talking to someone who's already done it and you can absolutely go and follow in their footsteps to success. So those are the things that I highly recommend docs do. And again, if they really, really want to go further faster, surround yourself with a group of like-minded docs who are already having fun, and really living the life that they knew was possible, but couldn't have until they made that decision to move towards it.
That's awesome. If anybody wants to have a conversation with me, you can go to surgeonsyndicate.com and book a call. If you really want to add some rocket fuel to your journey and have a conversation with somebody like Trevor, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, thank you, Mike. And they can simply go to my website. It's trevormcgregor.com. That's TrevorMcGregor.com. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn or other social media channels. But I'm absolutely defiantly committed to helping doctors live their next chapter of their life. So if anyone wants to reach out, I'd love to talk to you.
Awesome. Trevor, thank you for being back on the show. This has been awesome. I've enjoyed it so much. Everybody listening, thank you for joining us here on Surgeon Syndicate, and we'll see you next time.
This has been an episode of Surgeon Syndicate. If you got value from this episode, you know other surgeons are hungry to become job optional, and you can help them by sharing this content today. Schedule a call, and we can make a plan. Looking forward to having you with me on the next episode.